Okay, we're about 1 minute late. We are live, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up on my iPad just to make sure that we've got good audio. Looks like there are a couple of people in the house already. Blue Shirt Buddha's in the house. Carlos is in the house. Okay, we're about 1 minute late. And the audio sounds good on my end, so I just went ahead and muted that. And this is a semi-emergency broadcast. This is in response to some comments in some of the forums. And I'm just seeing more and more these days that there is a lack of education out there. And so one of the things that this channel tries to do is tries to right that ship and get things in the right direction. So we're going to talk about some of these misconceptions and some of these outright falsehoods. And we're going to talk specifically about the clasp on this stunner and my initial impressions when I first got the watch, and then how fairly rapidly, within a few weeks, those impressions did a complete 180 degrees, and I fell in love with the clasp. We're going to talk about that. David Williams says audio is good. And before I get into all of that, here is another brush that I picked up from Wild West Brushworks. Really like it. This is the Boss, I think, 24 millimeter knot, BOSS. It is a synthetic. It is not beaver, but I really like this. They call it a knot on this particular brush. It really lathers up great and feels very good on the face. So it's the second one that I've actually purchased of this same style. The other one looks different, but it's the same exact knot. So now I have two of them so I can rotate them. And they say with the synthetic, you don't really have to rotate it. You can use the same one every day. But I think I'll feel more comfortable if I rotate it every other day. So shout out to Wild West Brushworks. And this puppy is made in the U.S. Let's see if we can get a close-up. There we go. So there you go, Wild West Brushworks. And let's see, before we get into the main topic of the show, I'm dressed casually because I'm wearing a sport watch, and we're going to talk about sport watches, and we're going to talk about function, and we're going to talk about how important function is when it comes to a sport watch. And now, let me preface this by saying that all of these comments that I'm going to make in today's show, they don't apply to someone who is strictly buying watches as an investment and to store in a box, to put in a safe, to put in a safety deposit box, to look at and not wear, and or to wear occasionally, rarely, and or to simply own the watch in order to post photos to social media. It does not apply to any of those use cases. What this all applies to are people that buy watches to wear and use on a daily basis, and sometimes heavy use. What I call heavy use is when you don't take off the watch to protect it. In other words, you're going to the gym to work out with some weights or whatever, it's still on your wrist. You're working on your car, doing some relatively minor work on your car. Not talking about really heavy mechanical work, but some minor things or whatever here and there, you don't take the watch off. You're dealing with some heavy camera equipment, setting up some jibs, some cranes, some lighting, whatever you're doing, you're banging some things around, you're reaching in the box, you're doing this and all. You're not taking the watch off and putting it in its box and putting it off somewhere to protect it. You're wearing the watch. So that's what I call heavy use. I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about just heavy daily use. So these are the folks that this applies to. So let's get caught up real quick on the comments. Craig, I own several high-end Swiss tool watches from Rolex, Omega, Breitling, etc. Though I don't own one yet, I can say the Grand Seiko is superior. Wow, quite a comment there. I've never used a shaving brush. Carlos in the house. This is the one to try. This is definitely the one to try. I bought one off of eBay, and it was shedding real bad. It was not a good experience. And then I went on some of the forums and talked to them about that, and they recommended this company, Wild West Brushworks, and they were right. These don't shed at all, and they're really, really good. I love it. Okay, so Blue Shirt beat him. Neither watches are meant to be worn, period. How do you like SBGA231? Let's pull that up before we get into this. SBGH25 or 7. Let's see what we got here. And here's one used. Goffberg has one used. Let's pull it up here real quick, and then I'll switch to it. Oh, so that's the big heavy-duty monster. Yeah, I looked at that one, and it's just a little bit too big and bulky for me. But if you like something a little bigger and bulkier, then yeah. And if you do want to go with a purely mechanical, then yeah. So if those two things are what you want, absolutely, that would be a killer watch. Let's see. Spring drive is a leap over anything Swiss have. Craig, can you do more videos comparing GS to other Swiss brands besides Rolex? Well, see, I had 40 years of experience with Rolex, so it's a lot easier for me to compare to Rolex. I had a couple of Omegas. Actually, really, for any period of time, I only had one Omega that I kept for, almost 10 years. So I can compare to Omega and Rolex, but I really can't compare to the others just because I haven't really owned those. Craig, I'm thinking about Grand Seiko as I can't get the Rolex I want. Should I pull the trigger on the spring drive diver and not the Submariner? We'll talk about that. My concern is the fact that I like a ceramic bezel. I'll tell you, this bezel has held up fantastically well. And so let me give you a close-up shot at that. There's the bezel on mine. Pull this up a little bit more. So that's more than a year and a half's heavy use, and I think it's holding up really well. So I wouldn't be worried about that at all. I like this bezel. I like the look of it. I like the way the numbers really stand out. It's extremely legible. And I like the fact that it has the hash marks every minute. I just like the design of it. I would look at one and see what you think once you've actually seen, touched, and felt the watch. Okay, so let's get into it. One thing that somebody made a comment about in one of the forums recently is they're concerned about the spring drive because the braking mechanism that slows down the movement, that keeps it in time, that would wear out just like brake shoes on a car wear out, like on the disc brake system, how the brake shoes are clamping down on the rotor to slow it down, right? They thought that there were like little brake shoes that slow down the spinning wheel to keep the timing accurate, right? And I had to let them know that nothing's touching anything. It's electromagnetic brake. There is no friction. There is no metal on metal. There is no anything on anything. It's not touching. It's electromagnetic, and so there's almost no wear and tear. And because there's basically no escapement mechanism, no back and forth, there's a lot less wear and tear than a typical mechanical movement. So really, most experts that really know the spring drive setup have said that it is more robust than a typical mechanical movement, and not by just a little bit, by a pretty significant margin. So not only is it significantly more accurate, but it's also more robust. And by the way, people say, well, I'm gonna use my my computer as a clock. Or my phone as a clock. I'm looking right now. Notice this. My laptop here says it's 3:56 p.m. So the time is off on my laptop. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. I can't. On the preview monitor, it looks like it's kind of cut off. But the time, believe it or not, says December 17, 3:56 p.m. Now just turned to 3:57 p.m. And it actually is about coming up on 4:11 p.m. So it's off by like, you know, almost 13, 14 minutes. That's the first time I've ever seen that, to tell you the truth. My laptop clock is way off. So that's kind of bizarre. My phone is accurate. It's got the correct time. Okay, so I like the aluminum bezel on my sub, prefer so much more than the ceramic. Okay, Jaden, in the house. Well, also, it's less likely to fracture if you slam it on something. So there's that benefit as well. And if you do damage it, it's a lot less expensive to replace. We're going to talk about practicality. We're going to talk about function over form and things being practical. And in a heavy use sport watch, a diver watch is a good choice because by definition, they have to be heavier duty watches than a typical watch in order to be called a diver watch. They have to meet a certain threshold as far as shock resistance, of course, as far as water resistance, and there are other attributes that they, as far as legibility and different things they have to meet, different standards they have to meet to be able to even be called a diver's watch. So it's a good choice if you want something as a heavy use watch to pick a diver's watch because of those attributes. Now, when we get to the elephant in the room, the clasp on this watch, everybody poo-poos the clasp. Everybody says, oh, it's stamped, it's ugly, it's bulky, it's all these things they talk about, right? And when I first saw it, of course, I'd read all those things prior to seeing it, so I was predisposed to think the same things, right? When I first saw it, I have to tell you, I wasn't impressed with this clasp. Let's take a closer look at it. Okay, and I actually talked to Steve. I said, well, you know, can we get it replaced with some other clasp or whatever? This was when I first bought the watch. Well, it's tricky to do that, and I wouldn't recommend that, and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you try it for a while and see what you think? So I wore it, and within a couple of weeks, I was like, man, I'm starting to really like this clasp. And I'll tell you what I like about it. I love the fact that on the fly, anytime, I can just lift this release up and just pull it back a little bit, and I just release this out about 1 millimeter, the extension. It's out about 1 millimeter. I'll give you a close-up look at that. See, it's out just a little bit, and then I'll push it back in and show you how easy it is to push it back in. Bam, I just pushed it back in. Okay, so that's how easy it is to adjust it. All right, so a quick and easy adjustment, just like this. Now, if I hold it and push it a little more, notice it's out like 2 millimeters. Okay, I'll give you a close-up at that. And that's what people always show, by the way, when they try to attack this clasp and how ugly it is and all that. They always show it extended out like this and say, oh, look how you can see that mechanism and all that, you know. Well, how often are you going to extend it out that much, first of all? Like never, right? And second of all, again, when you get into function, the beauty of this is I can adjust it on wrist very quickly, very easily, even in the dark, which I do often. I'll be sleeping and I will like, hey, my bracelet feels a little tight for some reason or whatever. When you guys get older, you'll understand your wrist expands and contracts more, right? And I'll just want to extend it a little bit just for comfort because I wear it even when I'm sleeping. And I'll just extend it out a couple clicks, right? And just give myself a lot of slack and just leave it like that all night. And then when I get up, you know, I'll just push it back in. It's like a one-way ratchet, right? Right? I can push it back in easily. I can't pull it out at all without pulling this release up, right? So it's like a one-way ratchet. So I can just click it back in a click or two, right? And get it exactly the way I want it at any given time. Now, couple with that, the fact that it has 4 micro adjustments. Once a year, I adjust these micro adjustments. twice a year actually. In the fall, I bring it in one notch, and in the spring, I take it back out one notch. So I adjust it one notch. In the summer, looser. In the winter, tighter. And so it gives a lot of flexibility the way this clasp is designed. Now, add to that the fact that, let me push it back in. See, normally it's all the way in. Normally I don't have it extended at all. I only extend it like if I've been doing a lot of exercising or something that my wrist is swollen up a little bit temporarily, I might extend it just a little bit, right? But normally it's all the way in. And again, twice a year I do the adjustment depending for the climate of that time of the year, right? So, now the other big benefit to this clasp is when I want to take the watch on and off. It's so easy to do. This has a nice big area for your finger to go in that you pull up. Very easy to pull that up. And then it's got two triggers, one on either side. You push those in and bam, it's off the wrist. Super, super fast and easy. Let me do that again. Put it on, boom. Okay? Take it off. Very easy. And you can do it blind. You can do it totally blind. Not quite that easy with a Rolex. Okay? Now, here's the thing. When you get the tolerances so close like they did on the Rolex clasp, where you bit your finger in there and you pop the thing off, the tolerances, everything's so tight and so close, it's not quite as easy to do. All right? And the way the extension mechanism works is virtually impossible to do on wrist, on a sub. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're an owner, if you can do it on wrist. I think it's virtually impossible to do on wrist. And I don't like to have to take my watch off to do that adjustment. I'm always nervous when I take a watch off wrist. I'm nervous it could get dropped. And here's a guy that doesn't baby his watches, right? I'm nervous that it could get dropped. I'm nervous that it could get lost. I'm just nervous when I take watches off wrist, especially expensive watches, and I'd rather be able to do that sort of an adjustment on wrist. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Let's see. And we'll talk about comparing this watch in general to a Submariner as we progress here. Let's see. Jim says, looks stunning, Craig. How about the Rolex Explorer? It's a great choice. Yes, the Rolex Explorer is a great choice. For an all-arounder, you know, it's thin enough that you can use that in a dress situation. You cannot use this in a dress situation, in my opinion. It would look out of place. It would just not make any sense. That's why I have this watch here to rotate in with it. That's very thin, and that's 39 mils. And that can go underneath my dress shirts and so on. So that's my rotation. And that one being a 9F movement, as you know, it's a quartz, so I can just grab and go with that watch. Like tomorrow late afternoon, I'm going to a Chamber of Commerce function, and I'll just grab that and put it on wrist, and I'll be good to go, right? So, yes, an Explorer is a fantastic option. Now, again, it doesn't have the flexibility that this watch has as far as the way this clasp operates, the extension mechanism and all of that, right? So everything's a give and take. Everything's a compromise. When you get into a dressier watch, you're going to want a more trim clasp. Like this one here doesn't have any micro adjustments at all, but the clasp is very trim, right? So that's a compromise. All right, they chose a very thin and trim clasp as opposed to putting micro adjustments in there. I would rather have the micro adjustments myself, but the choice that Grand Seiko made in that case was make it as trim as possible. And when using it in a dress situation, that is nice. How is the time off on a laptop? I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I'm not going to refresh anything because I've got some things on the screen here to to show, but let me click on the clock and see. Viewing as analog, viewing as digital. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's the first time I've ever had that happen. Better restart it. It's been a while since I've restarted this laptop, so maybe I better restart it. Let's see. Is the quality on a Grand Seiko as good as Rolex Fit and Finish? I think it's higher quality. Yeah, we're going to talk about the overall quality of the bracelet and the design and all of that. We're going to get into some detail on that too, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about that. And as soon as I get through these comments, we'll get into that. I prefer the coaxial over all of them, and it's still a true mechanical. Do some research on the spring drive, because I think you'll be swayed towards the spring drive if you really do some research on it. It is amazing. I understand why it is so important to you. You seem to like to wear the watch tight. I don't like a watch that really is flopping around on my wrist a lot. I don't like it tight enough to where it's putting an imprint of the bracelet on my skin. I don't like it that tight. But I don't like it so it flops around too much. I mean, it's not, you can see, this will go below the bone if I push it, right? This bone here, right? But I like it above the bone, and it's got a little bit of play there, right? But yeah, it's not what you would call loose by any means. I think it's just right, personally, but that's my opinion. Honestly, I see the removal of the watch pretty much the same on an Explorer. I cannot tell of a sub. Okay. Nice jacket. Our wags in the house. This is my lounge around the house Patagonia, made in the USA. So yeah, it looks like it's got a couple of spots on it over here somewhere. That might just be the way the fleece is. Let's see here. And again, function. We're talking about function. This is very functional. These two layered together keep me nice and warm, even when it's pretty chilly inside here. As you all know, I'm a cheapskate. I don't run the heat very much. And I keep it a little bit warmer when Brianna's here, I have to admit. I do give her a few degrees warmer, but it's still chilly, even when she's here. So that's why she likes to wear the cashmere sweaters and stuff. Let's see here. Just a friend of mine getting back from Panama City, enjoyed his visits. Okay. All right, so let's get into the overall quality and design, and let's talk specifically about the bracelet. And you know, even Tim, the watch box, I mean, he really knows his stuff. He knows watches. But he will routinely make the comment about screws being used to size a bracelet. How Rolex, generally speaking, uses screws. And some of the Grand Seikos that are steel use screws. And I'll get into a different type of screw situation with those. But then these titanium ones, like this one, uses the pin and the collar. Okay, and he talks like that's not good. Like an expensive watch shouldn't use the pin and collar. He kind of down talks it most of the time. The way he explains it, he implies that the screws are a higher end solution. And that is wrong. I hate to say it, but in this case, if that's what he's saying, and he doesn't really come right out and say it, he pretty much implies it, but if that's what he's saying, and a lot of people do say it, by the way, that's wrong. Full stop. That's wrong. And I'll explain to you why. A bracelet really should have as much flexibility as possible to fit around the wrist comfortably and to be able to flex as you move your wrist. Without that flexibility being extreme, of course, because then it would look sloppy, it has to have just the right amount of flexibility. And that amount of flexibility should be consistent throughout the life of the watch, if possible. And when you have a screw going through the outer link and then through the center link and then screwed into the link on the end, that screw is fixed in place. It will not rotate. It's a fixed screw going through there. And then the link, let me take this off. The link, when it moves like this, it's rubbing against that fixed screw. And it's doing that for the entire lifespan of the watch. And this is why a lot of Rolex watches get that stretch in the bracelet, that famous stretch. Metal on metal, folks, when you've got a fixed screw and that link is rubbing against it constantly, it's going to cause wear. Primarily on the link itself, also on the screw to some extent, but usually it's the center link that gets, that the hole becomes elongated and causes that stretch. Now, if you have a pin and collar situation, the pin goes through and is pressed into the collar. And the whole thing can freewheel. The whole pin, even the collar, everything in there can freewheel. And so as that link pivots on that pin, it can give a little bit of freewheeling motion, which will help lessen the wear. Now, there's still going to be wear, but significantly less wear. Add to that the fact that the pin and collar can easily be replaced if it became bent or worn. The actual pin itself becomes worn maybe. It can be easily replaced. Not so easily, the screws are not so easily replaced. And they tend to be more expensive because they're very, very proprietary, right? That pin just has to be the right length and the right diameter. It just has to be, close, and it'll work, right? So there are actually a lot of advantages to the pin and the collar situation. Now, I'm not talking about a press pin, which a lot of really inexpensive bracelets use. That's a whole different ballgame, and that's junk. That's not a good way to go. But the pin and the collar, which is what is used in this bracelet, is a fantastic setup and far superior in a heavy use watch like this to using screws. Not to mention the fact that the screws can back out if you're not careful, and you can lose the whole damn watch. Not going to happen with a pin and collar. That pin is pressed into that collar, and it's not easy to press it out. You need a press. You need to hammer it out or press it out. It's not going to come out all by itself. Okay, so let's read up on the Explorers here. Rolex Explorer 1, Easy Links, comfortable wear. Yeah, the thing about the Easy Link is it extends quite a bit. And in some cases, that's too much. So that's the issue there. Everything has an issue, right? Nothing's perfect. Let's see here. Panama City is full of contrast. You can feel like in Miami, and 5 minutes later, like La Habana. Okay, whatever that is. Okay, the GS divers are just too big for my wrist. The GS is definitely on my list, but not their divers unless they come out with something smaller. Okay, you might want to look at something like that at GMT. That's 39 mils and 12 mils thick. You might want to look at something like that. Hell of a watch. Is it possible to have titanium screws? I thought that titanium threaded contact does not work well. I think they're very hard to produce. Titanium, especially grade 5 titanium, is very tough, very hard stuff. And I think it's problematic. And so, yeah, I think the the pin and collars are definitely the better scenario. I mean, even if you did want to spend the money to make the titanium screws and go to all that trouble, again, you've got a lesser solution, a less robust solution, because again, you're going to have a fixed screw. See, if you got a screw going in there and then anchored down, the whole definition of that is it ain't rotating. Because if that screw's rotating, then it's absolutely going to back itself out and you're going to lose the watch, right? So you don't want it to rotate. Sometimes people put thread lock on them, right? So they won't rotate. Because you absolutely don't want that screw to rotate. You want it to be fixed. And as soon as you've got a fixed screw going through there and you've got that center link rotating on that, you're going to have wear. I mean, that's just the way it works. Now, that's why Rolex, on some of their newer models, like the Date 8, the new Date 8s, they've got that ceramic sleeve in there to have something that will freewheel, right? Now, that solves the problem, because now, yes, you can have a fixed screw going all the way through because you've got that ceramic sleeve on there that can freewheel and that the link can rotate on. So that's a really good solution. They should have done it years ago. I mean, you wouldn't have a whole bunch of people with Rolexes with bracelet stretch if they'd have put those ceramic sleeves in years ago. Now, I'm assuming those ceramic sleeves are going to hold up and that they're not going to break to pieces. Like if you shock it or bang it or something, maybe those ceramic sleeves could actually fracture, and then you could have a whole nother problem on your hands. So I think, it's possible that the pin and collar that by the way, Patek Philippe has used pin and collars as well in the past, and I think they might still on some of their models. It might be the best solution. It might be even better than that ceramic sleeve if those ceramic sleeves turn out to be problematic. They haven't been out long enough for us to really know how well those are going to hold up. Let's see. Can you get that bracelet for the 245? This bracelet, as far as I know, comes on on all the high-end divers, I think. I think it comes on all the Grand Seiko divers. I'm not sure. Now, this clasp actually was engineered and designed for the Marine Master. It's actually, was on the Marine Master, the Seiko Marine Master, for years. This same clasp. It's stainless steel, by the way. The rest of this watch is titanium. This clasp is stainless steel. Okay? Let's see here. Hi, Craig. I love your videos. Honest question, and would appreciate honest reply. Why do you always defend Grand Seiko? It is because you love the brand, or is it because you own Grand Seiko? It is because it really bugs me when I see people giving out false information, and especially people that are leaders and that should be careful about what they say and should be accurate. It bugs the hell out of me when I see that kind of thing, and so I want to try to write it when I can. And I mean, I do this, it's not just Grand Seiko. I mean, if somebody says something inaccurate about a lens for a camera that I own, or something that I've experienced with. Now, I'm not going to comment unless I have experience with it, unless I know what the hell I'm talking about, because otherwise I'm just like them. I'm like the people that I'm setting straight, that I'm, if you will, criticizing, whatever term you want to use. I'm just like them if I'm just talking about things I have no clue about, right? So that's why I will often, when somebody asks me a question in here, I will often say, well, I just don't have any experience with that. I can't really comment. But I do have experience with this. I've been wearing the watch for, more than a year and a half. And I have extensively researched the pen and collar situation, the titanium versus steel, all of these things. I err on the side of more research than necessary whenever I spend my hard-earned money. I dig deep. Like I'm thinking about doing some upgrades on my Mac Pro, my 2010 Mac Pro. And I've got like 5 or 6 items in my shopping cart on Amazon to do a major upgrade on it. The graphics card, 2 new monitors, a new SSD to go on the PC with the slot, whatever the hell you call those slots. Another card for 2 USB-C ports to add to it. Like $900 and some odd worth of stuff to do some upgrades to that Mac Pro, that 2010 Mac Pro, which is in my guest room that my guests use. And I mean, I've been researching the hell out of that, right? I've been watching any video I can find about it. I've been talking I was talking to the Clivester. Clive has done major upgrades to his Mac Pro. And I was talking to him about it. So I'm going to measure 7 times and cut once. And then when I buy that equipment and I do the upgrade and all, I'll probably do a video about it. If I screw up and if something doesn't work right and all, I'll be the first one to say it. Right? I'll be the first one to say it. And so, because people have helped me by doing videos like this and explaining how things work and things like that. It's a huge amount of information that you can get on the internet on all these different topics. But it bugs the hell out of me when people put information out there that is false, because I might watch that and I might be guided the wrong direction because of inaccurate or false or just BS information. So yeah, I mean, part of it is I own and use Grand Seikos, obviously. And a large part of it is I just don't like a bunch of false information out there banging around. And hey, people call me out and say, you're not right about this or whatever. And if it turns out that I'm wrong, I'll admit it. But I'm almost never wrong. And you guys all know that. That's how this all works. Okay. I have titanium screws in my shoulders, Carlos. They work fine. Yeah, and they probably cost a lot of freaking money. My problem with pins and collars is they are a pain to size. If you don't size your own bracelet, then which one is easier to size is irrelevant to you. It's more about aesthetics at that point. Here's the thing, though. You would think that was true, but this watch here, and I mean, this is where Grand Seiko, in my opinion, gives us a real cluster, you know what. And I know what they were trying to do. But on this particular bracelet, it has 2 little screws that go in on either side. 2 little screws. And those little screws hold a pin that's in between them. Okay, so when you size this, you have to take out 2 tiny little screws, and then you have to slide the pin out. And I'm sure the reason they did this was, again, they wanted that pin to be able to float, to be able to freewheel against that center link when that link pivots, right? They wanted that freewheeling to give the flexibility to the bracelet and to limit wear. I get that, right? But in my opinion, that bracelet is even harder to resize than the pins and collars, because you got 2 little tiny screws to lose that I couldn't even take them out. I tried to do it myself. I couldn't even take the little tiny screws out. They were just too damn tiny. And I had the tiny jeweler screwdrivers and everything. And I just gave up and I just had Steve do the sizing. But I'm not going to try to size that bracelet. Now this one, the thing about this is you really only have to have it sized once, because you've got 4 micro adjustments. If you have it sized properly once, so that you have at least 1 micro adjustment on either side, right? And it's fitting properly, right? And you still have at least 1 micro adjustment on each side, you should be able to get by indefinitely with micro adjustments, unless you eat like a horse and put on 100 pounds or something. Then you might have to, you might be outside of the 4 micro adjustments they'll allow for you. But practically speaking, you really should only have to do the sizing on the bracelet once on this because of the micro adjustments. So it really shouldn't be a problem. Now, I will say I did do the adjustment on the snowflake a few times. I bought one of those little presses that you set the bracelet down in, and you crank the little thing and it presses the pin out. And I resized my snowflake a couple different times because it didn't have micro adjustments, of course. And it wasn't that difficult, and my eyes aren't that great, and also if I can do it, I think anybody can do it. It really wasn't that difficult. And every year I did take out a link on my date and put a link back in. In the fall, I would take out a link, and in the spring I would put a link back in, and I did that myself with the screws. And I will say I never had a screw accidentally back out. It never gave trouble on that front. But as far as it being difficult to work with the pins and the collars, if you've got the right, one of those little presses, it's really not that hard. And again, if it's the correct watch, if it's the watch with the micro adjustments, you should only have to do that once. Let's see. Titanium thread contact. I'd have to ask the surgeon. We'll get back to you. Spent 2 years deciding between the two and coaxial one, and I know you like that Clasp, but I hate it on Marine Master and just couldn't justify it for even higher price Grand Seiko for me personally. I mean, again, did you wear a Marine Master with this Clasp for a while? Did you actually use it? Because use is what convinced me that it's the way to go. I mean, it's just a joy to use, and the watch is extremely comfortable on wrist. I mean, it just does everything I need to do. And I really don't think it's that ugly. It looks like a tool watch, and the Clasp looks like a clasp that's heavy duty that you would have on a tool watch. And the fact that portions of it are stamped, I mean, sometimes that's the best way to do something. I mean, sometimes, it works. And even the Rolexes that had stamped clasps for years, everybody's like, talks about how much garbage they are and all this stuff. I mean, they worked fine. They were very easy to adjust. They worked fine. I never had a speck of trouble with them. Yeah, and some of the newer ones, like on the Sub, they're so long. The underside here, the clasp portion is so long. I think it looks kind of funny. Personally, I kind of like the vintage ones better. I kind of would probably rather have one of the vintage clasps than that new machined clasp. But that's just me. So, but again, if all you're concerned with is looks and you want to have pretty pictures to put up on Facebook or something, then yeah, if function is not the concern, then yeah, maybe you want something that really looks finished and super tight tolerances, and maybe that's what you want. But here, let me show you this. Here's a Series 3 Land Rover, the one on the right. And, people could say, well, that's ugly, right? But it was built for function. It was built to do certain tasks, and they do a fantastic job of it. Now, don't get me started on reliability and oil leaks and all those things that they have, but they were easy to fix in the field and easy to keep running, albeit maybe not running that great half the time. But I mean, you could go to a Land Cruiser if you want reliability, right? And again, the Land Cruisers, I mean, not necessarily the most attractive vehicle. There are a lot of vehicles that are more attractive, right? But they're designed to get a job done and to function. So there's that. Let's see. Yes, I do have full titanium watch with titanium screws. Somebody has, okay. Let's see. I think the convince of a screw and bracelet is what watch nuts miss when not available. The pin and collar is safer system but not easy to size. Yeah. Well, and like I say, they don't talk about all the advantages of the pin and collar as far as wear and tear and things like that, because a lot of them are just not educated and they're not clueless. They're clueless on this stuff. I do have a full titanium watch with titanium screws. Somebody, okay. My friend just bought an early 2000s pre-ceramic Rolex Sea Dweller 40 millimeter, and it's a real stunner. Due for a service though. Okay. Cool. Patek still uses pins and collars. I believe the Nautilus 5711 and their gold model bracelets use them. Okay, good info. Did you see YouTube Horology House compare the 231 versus the Sea Dweller? Yes, I did. Yes, I did see that video. And again, he kind of like, he knocked this watch on the bracelet. He gave the bracelet, the nod on the bracelet to the Rolex, and I think he's just all wet on that. I think maybe he just hasn't worn one of these for a period of time. He just has no clue about the comfort and on wrist and everything, and the flexibility and the finishing, how nice and smooth these are inside and how good they feel on the wrist. And again, the functionality of this clasp and all. Yeah, there's just some things that he dinged it for that just kind of indicated to me that he doesn't have any long-term experience with the watch. So, yeah, there's that. Let's see. That was a great video. Well done. Okay. Let's see. If you're dealing with an affordable watch bracelet, then pins and collars is a better system. Most cheap watch bracelet with screws suffer from bad threading and stripping. Well, here's the thing, though. Most cheaper watches will not have a pin and collar situation. Most of them will have just the pressure pins. And those are a total fail, in my opinion. I mean, that's the worst possible way to hold a bracelet together, those pressure pins. Because they can definitely work their way out, and they, over time, they lose their tension, where you press them into the way those work is they go through the center link and then they pressure fit into the outer link, right? And that is the weak point. That pressure fitting fails over time, and it's just not anywhere near as good as the pin and collar situation as far as long-term durability, in my opinion. Let's see, I respect the heck out of ceramic Submariner, but compared to the older subs, it feels almost unnecessarily overbuilt. Well, yeah, and somebody else made a comment about this watch, how they didn't like it because it felt cheap. It felt, because it was so lightweight, right? And here's the thing. Yes, it's lightweight, but it's solid. Everything's solid. It doesn't jingle. You know, it's extremely well made. And this titanium is very tough stuff. It's tougher than the stainless steel that Rolex uses, and by a good measure. It's more corrosion resistant, by the way, than the stainless steel that Rolex uses. These are simply facts, folks. You can research it and find out. This is more corrosion resistant than the stainless steel that Rolex uses. And the stainless steel that Rolex uses is some of the more corrosion resistant stainless steel that you can get. But still, this titanium trumps it in that department. Okay? It's also tougher and more scratch resistant. All right? And it has a bonus of being a lot more comfortable on wrist. So what's the downside? I mean, why in the world would you want unnecessary weight on your wrist? If the weight comes with a benefit of strength or durability or whatever, I'm all for it. I'm all for things being overbuilt, right? But this is lighter and stronger. So I'll take that any day. I'll take lighter and stronger any day of the week, folks. Let's see here. Craig, there is something to be said about how cool pre-ceramic Submariners and Sea Dwellers are, like the air-cooled Porsche 911. Well, I mean, I've said all along that I'm not a super case fan. So right there, that knocks out most of the ceramic Rolexes is the super case. I think it's a total fail. And we had a debate. I had a debate in one of the forums about that with somebody. And yeah, their comment was, well, if the super case was such a fail, then how come everybody's lining up to buy them? How come there's waiting lists for people to buy them? And I responded to him. I said, people line up to buy McDonald's food too. You ever see the drive-in windows? Sometimes they have a line of cars, lining up to buy that junk. And just because a whole bunch of people want to buy something doesn't mean that it's the best choice. Look how many people go to Walmart and shop. And just about everything they sell in Walmart is junk. Okay? So don't use what most people do to make a determination that it's a good choice. Because right now, statistically in these United States of America, and I don't know what it's like worldwide, but in these United States of America, statistically, most people are making bad choices. And the reason I say that is most people are overweight. The latest stats came out, I think it's 71% of Americans are overweight. I think 41% are considered obese, but 71% are overweight. I think the latest stats, I think 2/3 have no net worth, are basically broke. Okay, so the majority of people out there, out and about, are making bad choices. So just because a whole bunch of people want to buy steel Rolex sport watches and pay too much money for them doesn't mean that that is a good choice. Just saying. So let's see. Agreed. Friction pins often break at the fold due to metal fatigue, terrible adjustment system. Tudor Pelagos, a guy also titanium checking in, would say that the titanium is a scratch magnet. If you don't have the correct alloy, that's right. That's right. But if you have the alloy that Grand Seiko uses, it is fantastic and holds up great. Here's mine. After almost 2 years of heavy use. Now you see there's a ton of scratches on the clasp. And that's stainless steel. So there you go. And there are also idiots out there that say, by the way, that the platinum on a Yachtmaster is a scratch magnet. I don't know what's wrong with these people. And by the way, there's a guy that put a video up on his gold Submariner and talking about how he doesn't want to wear it because it's so easy to scratch, and he's showing it and how mint condition it's in and all. And he says, well, it's got a couple of little swirl marks here and there, and but yeah, I don't like to wear it very often. If there's any chance I'm going to scratch it or whatever. And I'm like, I just chimed in there. I said, man, life is too freaking short. Wear and enjoy the watch. For God's sakes, you spent a ton of money on a gold sub, and now you're not even willing to wear it. And I told another guy, I said, by the way, I used toothpaste and a toothbrush to clean my Date 8 for 19 freaking years. Oh, well, that's not horologically correct. I said, well, guess what? My Date 8 looked beautiful. Every day I freaking wore it. It always looked gorgeous. Did it have very, very fine scratches on it that you had to use a loop to see? Yeah. Yeah, it had those. It had a patina all over it, right? But it looked freaking gorgeous, and I've shown pictures of it on here. There's videos on my freaking channel in 4K Ultra HD. It looked freaking gorgeous, all right? And I wore it almost every day, and I didn't baby it. And yes, I cleaned it from time to time with a toothbrush and toothpaste. 18 karat yellow freaking gold. And no, it's not fragile. It's designed to be worn and used. Don't get me started, folks. Don't get me wound up here today. Let's see here. It's awesome on... Okay. Not to change the subject, but I think it's where Tudor excels over Rolex is the clasp. They use ceramic balls for a more secure lock and better longevity. I believe most new Tudors have these. Yeah, but I would pass on Tudors altogether. I wouldn't even consider buying a Tudor. I'd buy something else. People also line up at the drive-thru at Starbucks and the coffee still sucks. Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I can't really comment on the quality of coffee from one place to another, but I think it all tastes like garbage. I tasted coffee. Somebody gave me a sip of coffee when I was like 5 years old. I said, man, this tastes terrible. Why would anybody ever drink this stuff? And I never drank it from then on. If I was somewhere where people were getting coffee and all like that, I'd try to ask for a hot chocolate. I'd go that route. Let's see. People also, okay, I just, LOL, I like Walmart and Costco. Costco is great. I buy a lot of my staples at Costco. I buy my sweet potatoes there. I buy tomatoes there. They have really good tomatoes a lot of the time when I can't get local ones. Yeah, Costco is fantastic. But no, I'd skip Walmart. I think it's the polished finish on the Yachtmaster that the scratch mark. Well, the middle, especially the middle links on the bracelet. But still, I mean, after a period of time, believe it or not, watches like that will get a patina. They'll get like an even, series of scratches all over them, fine little scratches here all over them. It just becomes like almost like a patina, and they look fine. They still look like a high quality watch. They still look good. They still function good. They my God, people, wear these watches. They're not investments. They're not a store of value. If you're thinking of your watch as a store of value, in other words, I don't want to put one scratch on it because I'm going to sell it one day for a ton of money, that is ridiculous. Put your money in something else that's a real store of value. But if you want to buy a watch, a high-quality watch like that, and enjoy it, wear it. Enjoy the damn watch. My goodness, people, life is way too short. Hey, just look at the net income of people who shop at Costco versus Walmart. Okay. Yeah, it's a pleasurable shopping experience, I'll put it that way, compared to Walmart. I have a Breitling Super Ocean that I bought used, and it's 5 years old. Do you think it's needed to get water seal tested, or am I just being over? Yeah, I would never do any of that. I just wear my watches, and if it ever leaks, then go ahead and get it serviced, and they can fix it. They'll fix whatever's wrong with it. But I've never had a problem with my watches leaking, and I've never had them pressure tested. I've never had the seals checked and all this nonsense. Somebody put in one of the things, oh my God, every 2 to 3 years you have to have the seals checked. When was the last time you had the seals checked in your faucet in your kitchen, I mean, you don't check the freaking seals. I mean, if something fails, if a seal fails or something starts leaking or whatever, then you fix it. You don't have a plumber come in and check them to make sure all your seals are okay. These seals are designed to last for many freaking years. They're very robust, especially on these divers watches. They're robust, folks. They're not going to fail in 2 or 3 years. What are you people thinking? Oh, I'm a certified watchmaker, and I say you should have your watch overhauled and serviced and all every 3 to 5 years, no matter what. It's like a car. Don't you know it's like a car? Do you have the oil changed in your car? Well, yeah, I have the oil changed in my car, but I'm sure as hell not going to have the oil changed in my watch. Are you freaking kidding me? Come on, people. It's not the same thing. This isn't a car. It doesn't even have coolant in it, for God's sakes. Yeah, they make these comparisons that are just totally ridiculous, right? And then, but they suck people in, and people give them their money. I wonder if some of these people that service these watches, I wonder if some of them don't even service them. If they just open them up and like look inside or whatever. Maybe they don't even open them up. And they hold them for like 6 to 8 weeks, and then they send it back. They probably check it and make sure it runs real good. And if it's still running real good, right, they probably say, well, hell, I'm not going to open this damn thing up because I'll probably do more harm than good. Then they probably hold it for like, 6 to 8 weeks and then call the guy, hey, I got good news. Your watch is ready and it's running great. All right. It was running great when he dropped it off too. Let's see, Cheetown, California. I wouldn't personally worry about seals unless you were constantly exposing the watch to abrasive soaps and salt water. I don't think the abrasive soaps and salt water can hardly even get to the seals. I really don't think that's a problem. I think your biggest problem is if you don't rinse the salt off, especially if you've got a stainless steel watch, they will corrode. That you'll start getting some corrosion issues if you don't rinse them off after you get out of the salt water. But I'm not so sure that the abrasive soaps and the salt water and things like that will even get to the seals. And if they do, it would just be the outer part of the seal, just a little tiny bit of it might be exposed a little bit to that. And I doubt it's going to like eat away at it or eat into it. I just think this is overhyped. I think that, yeah, I think there are other things to worry about. But I guess that's just me. I never had a problem. I took my Day-Date in hot tubs when it was like 18 years old, 17 years old, never been serviced, never been anything. I've taken it in hot tubs at 104 degrees and all that stuff with all the bubbling all around and all that stuff. The watch never leaked. I never had any Rolex leak. If a watch I had leaked, I'd be pissed off, I'll tell you that, but I'd get it fixed and I'd keep on getting up. But yeah, all the money I've saved over the years not having them serviced, I could afford to spend thousands to have one fixed if I had to, because I've already saved the money. Let's see, unless you really dive with them, then maybe you do need them checked. Yeah, I don't think people actually dive with these things. I don't think that's a thing, but oh well. Honestly, talking about going overboard, I like all my I take all my watches off when I go swimming, even the divers. I know, go ahead and laugh. That's an easy way to lose a watch, especially a high-dollar watch, is take it off wrist. Yeah, it's a good way to lose one. You've been lucky so far, I guess. Of course, watchmakers want you to service your watch every 3 years. That's where they make the big bucks. Yeah, I'll service your watch. I'll tell you what, I'll service it annually. That way you're sure to be safe. Send your watch to me every year on January 1st, and I'll service it and send it back. $200 flat rate, any watch. Now, the watch has to be still functioning, okay? It has to be completely functioning, fine. I'm not going to take a basket case in for that price, right? But if your watch is functioning perfectly well, perfectly acceptably, and you just want to have it serviced, just preventive maintenance, send it in to me, and for $200 flat rate, I'll take care of it, and I'll send it back 8 weeks later, and it'll be running great, just like it was when I got it. I'll promise you. $200. How's that? That's a good deal. Let's see. A lot of pools use salt water for chlorine generation and much lower concentration than the sea. Well, I would wear them in a pool, but not in salt water. I'm sure they can take it, but just don't want to risk it. Yeah, okay. Great show, and a recent subscriber. 2 questions. What do you think about experts saying that titanium from the snowflake scratches a lot more than any stainless steel? I think it's ridiculous. Stainless steel scratches like nobody's business. I mean, any stainless steel watch I've had is scratched. The snowflake I had for a period of time, it held up fine. Arguably, I think it held up better than most of my stainless steel watches that I've ever had. I think they are about the same. I think it's very close. I think both will scratch. I think the titanium is more scratch resistant. It is tougher stuff, but it will still scratch. There are some fine scratches on this watch. The stainless steel clasp is scratched a lot more, but of course that's banging down on things and all that. Clasps always scratch more anyway. So, but I think my experience is that the titanium has held up extremely well, and definitely I would get that over the stainless steel because of the comfort, the main reason, not because of scratch resistant, but I definitely think it's at least as scratch resistant as the steel, and probably more so. But I would just wear the watch and enjoy it. Let's see. Black Bay 58 is a stunner and a nod to the original Submariner, and fits so much better on wrist than, okay. What is your opinion about the golden snowflake? I like the golden snowflake. I haven't seen one in person though, but from what I've seen of them, online, I think it's kind of cool. I think either one, you can't go wrong with either the original snowflake or the golden. I think they're both fantastic options, if that's the watch you want. Yeah. Rolexes are made to be worn and used every day without skipping a beat. Don't worry about them leaking or servicing them every 3 years. There you go. Steve, okay, so about the Black Bay 58. Been happy with the black Pelagos. It's a little thick. Yeah, I think a lot of those are kind of on the thick side. I think that's one of the problems. Just one of the problems. So I would skip the whole Tudor thing. Annual servicing? Are you kidding me? Every watch needs a spring, fall, and summer, winter tune-up. Yeah, I think you're a good idea. Because my Prius, I have a spring and fall servicing. I take it to my buddies at Dynamic Automotive in the spring and the fall, and they do their thing. And I do that for my Prius, and it's running great and all that. So I agree. I think at least a spring and a fall service. Send them to me, $200 flat rate, and I'll take care of them. And if you have a collection, if you have 10 or more watches, I have volume discounts. I'll even show them on the show here. I'll even show the watch on the show. How's that? Let's see. I must say, sent my 2009 Rolex stainless Daytona to Rolex for service about a year ago. Damaged bracelet and clasp, tons of scratches. Cost me a fortune, but the watch came back looking new. There you go. I wonder how much it did cost. Share. Please do share. But see, that's the thing to do. When you do get it done, send it to Rolex. And I've had a couple of watches over the years, many, many years ago, that I did have serviced at Rolex. They were watches that I'd bought used and that I knew needed to be serviced. One had water damage. And so, yeah, I had good results with both of those. One of them was a 3/4 size date just with a white gold bezel Jubilee bracelet, and but it was damaged when I bought it, and I knew it. I got a good buy on it, and I took it to Rolex New York, and they did their thing, and it came out really, really nice. Let's see. Would you buy the season collection from Grand Seiko, and which one would you pick? I would get, I think 2 of them are spring drives, right? I would definitely get one that's a spring drive. And it's hard to say. I like them all, to tell you the truth. But yeah, it would have to be one of the ones that are spring drives. I think 2 of them are spring drives from what I recall. I would go and look at them and really try them on and really see what strikes you, because it's a big purchase and you want to really get something that you like. What do you think about the 2019 limited edition SBGA231? Let's check it out. SBGN009. Let's check it out here. Oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that model. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. I don't think you can go wrong. I like my 005 because I like the lume on it. But either one, you can't go wrong with those. And with the 9F, that's a fantastic movement. Talk about rugged, durable, heavy use movement. That'd be it. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, folks. So put any comments in there that I haven't, anything I haven't touched on, put it in there. Chi-Town, I see your seasonal servicing and raise you to monthly. Okay, monthly, yeah. Jay Gold gives a thumbs down. I guess is that on the show, the entire show, or just the monthly servicing? Maybe it's the entire show. We got a thumbs down. Damn. The show's going down the tubes. Approximately $1,700 to make my tone look new. New clasp and crystal. I wore the heck out of it. All right. Well, there you go. Getting your money's worth. Damn right. So it's still got the original dial and all of that. So it sounds like they didn't do anything that would harm the value of it. That's good. Don't forget the 2 years warranty that came with the service. There you go. Absolutely. Well, and it might be a good time to sell that puppy and make a big lick while the market is still hot. It might be a good time to think about that. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this puppy up. One more look at the stunner here. Here we go. Got a lot of speckles on it. I should clean it off. Let me see if I can clean it off with this cloth. Clean it off a little bit. I should have cleaned it off before the show. That's a stunner, folks. I don't care what these so-called experts say. This thing, I think it looks pretty good on wrist. Let me know what you guys think. How's it look on my wrist? My wrist is about anywhere between 7¼ and 7½ inches, depending on the temperature and if I've been exercising or whatever, if it's swollen or whatever. But it's between 7.25 and 7½ inches. There's the side view. See how it hugs the wrist? I think it's a stunner. I think it's hard to beat. And like I say, if I didn't believe that, I'd sell the damn thing and I'd get something else. That's the way I would do, because I'm going to wear them. I'm going to wear the watch. Let's see here. We're going to wrap this puppy up. Way to go, all. The servicing was expensive, but it was worth it considering how much you wore and enjoyed that Daytona every day. Well, there you go. Seiko LX Prospects Spring Drive. You pay a lot of money for those. I'd almost rather just step up and buy one of these. And by the way, Greg Good, I think his is still for sale. He's got a hell of a price on his, in box and papers and mint condition. I don't know if you guys know Greg Good, but he's in the forums, the Grand Seiko Facebook group and all that. If you guys are if anybody's thinking about a watch like this, you should really talk to him, because he's selling one right now. He's a serial flipper, right? He has a short attention span, and he wants to buy something real expensive, so he's trying to liquidate, and it's a pretty good price he has on this puppy. I think he was below $4,500 last I looked, and it's a really nice unit. It's only a few months old, so there you go. Don't forget to buy BTC today. BTC might still keep dropping, folks. We might not be at the bottom, so I don't know if I would buy now, but I mean, if I was a no coiner, I might, I might buy a Bitcoin at current prices, but It may still have further to drop. It's at, according to Coinbase, it's at 6,600 right now, right? So I don't know where the bottom is on this current downturn, but we've been sliding down here for a while, right? The trend has been down, and I don't know where we're going to bottom, but I will tell you that if we get down around 3,000, I'll probably buy a couple more Bitcoin. If we get down to 1,000 or even 1,250, I'll say 1,250. That's my back the truck up and buy. I will load up if it gets that low. And I already have a bunch, right? But I'll buy more because I'm a little bit greedy. So I'll like load up if it gets that low. But I don't think it's going to get that low. But if it does, I've got cash ready. I'll load up. Let's see here. What do you think about overseas Vacheron 3-hander? Does it have an integrated bracelet? If it does, no. Pass on that. You might be right. I have a new unworn ceramic Daytona. Time to sell. Yeah, absolutely. Get while the getting is good. Don't forget to buy. Oh, they already read that. It looks great on your wrist. My wrist is about half an inch smaller, so it would look too big for my wrist. Your GS looks terrific. I've been looking at it for a while. Already have 2 GSs. Okay. Wear that ceramic Daytona in good health. Absolutely, you're right. Is yours the black dial or Panda? Okay. Buy a Bitcoin or buy a GS. There you go. Well, if it was between those two, I would have to say I would buy a Bitcoin. Yeah, if I had to choose between the two. Best to have both, I think. That'd be a good move, just have both. My ceramic is the black dial. My 09 is a white dial. Okay. Where that be to enjoy it. There you go. Today, Trump was asking for more quantitative easing. I have rubber strap. Wait, okay. Don't wear it, sell to me. And remember, I predicted a couple of years ago, I predicted a couple of years ago, or I was hoping, I'll put it this way, that Bitcoin would hit $5,000 by 2020. We're not even in 2020 yet, right? And we're still over 5,000. So my target was $5,000 for the 2020 halving, which is in May of 2020. So my prediction will still be accurate if we go as low as 5,000, if we're at 5,000 in May of next year. I was thinking we would be at about 5 at that point, and then over that next year, which usually is what happens, is the run-up usually happens after the halving. We usually have a run-up for at least a year. We have a bull market. So starting in, let's say, June or July, my guess is that's when the next real bull market will start, and it'll run all the way through the end of 2020 and into 2021. That's my best guess, and it is a guess. No financial advice here, just my opinion. Let's see. I've been saving up all year, and I'm wondering what watch I should buy, Seiko Shogun or Grand Seiko SBGA231. The Shogun is a hell of a comfortable, it's just not as accurate as this watch. That's the main reason why I sold mine. But it's a super comfortable, super wearable, super usable watch. Let's look at the SBGX263. Two-six, 263. Let's look at that. Oh yeah, the entry level one. Yeah, that's a cool watch. Yeah, that is a cool watch, but obviously it's a lot more money than the Shogun. So that's your call as to whether or not you want to spend that additional money. But yeah, I like that watch. I like a very simple timepiece like that. And let's look at the dimensions of it. It's nice and thin. It's only 10 mils thick. It's a 37 mil watch. That's a nice piece. Yeah, I think that would be a great all-arounder. I think I asked you once before, does this have a screw-down crown? I mean, it wouldn't be a deal killer for me if it doesn't, but if you swim a lot and it doesn't have a screw-down crown, that would be a concern for me. That'd be the only thing I'd worry about on that is if you swim a lot and it doesn't have a screw-down crown, I'd be a little bit concerned. All right, we're going to wrap this puppy up. Thank you all again for watching. And I think we've officially solved all the world's problems at this point. So we're all good. Good. And we're going to wrap this puppy up. And remember, click subscribe and click the little bell, the little notification bell. Thanks for watching, everybody.